it again.
Okay.
Take two.
So, hello everyone. Welcome to Not For Nothing. I am in Richmond, Virginia. I am here visiting my friend Teresa Sharpe.
Oh, hey.
And we are at Unkindness in Richmond. Teresa, for anybody who doesn't know, and I can't believe there are many, why don't you tell people who you are?
I'm Teresa Sharpe. I've tattooed out of Richmond, Virginia at Unkindness Art. I've been here for about 8 years. I've been tattooing for 15 years now at this point, but I started in Indiana.
It's only been 15 years.
15.
How long have you been in Richmond now?
8.
8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I would be remiss if I didn't let people know that the way I actually met you was on the television show. We recorded a show called Best Ink. You were the winner of the second season. Mm-hmm. And I will admit that so when I met you on the show, I kind of had an idea of who you were. You were just starting to kind of make your way up. How did you end up getting on the show? We'll keep this real simple because real short because it's I don't think you owe the show much of anything. So
thanks, yeah. They actually approached me and asked if I would be on the show. So I didn't pursue being on TV. That wasn't like a dream of mine. But they had gotten my name, I think, from Derb, and they were looking for female artists to put on the show. They reached out to me through email, and they were like, would you consider trying out for Best Ink? So I was like, fuck it, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, they asked me, so, like, that means I've already got a leg up, so whatever.
Right, exactly.
And jumped through the hoops, the interviews, the personality test, the psych test. Those are always
fun. The psych
fun.
test always freaked me out when they talked about the psych test. That was
those
kind of
are
nuts.
interesting. And they go over the results with you, so you know just how crazy you are.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Because there was somebody on the set for the first season that was a bit of a... I was going to say Fruit Loop, but that's unfair. But yeah, there was somebody that was an issue, and that's one of the reasons they didn't put everybody in one big room and one big house. That was what I was told. I don't know how true that was. So
I mean, I don't know, but they didn't say that was a reason to me. But the second season, they already kind of had that sorted, so maybe that wasn't really a thing. But they did kind of go over like what your personality was and how far they thought you might make it.
Did they actually let you know that much?
A little bit, yeah. They were like, we think you actually do pretty well on the show, and
I wonder if they say that to everyone.
But yeah, they might, yeah. So I don't know, like, how much of it's like real.
Like how much of it's real? They're just trying to butter you up.
Right, yeah. Because I do feel like there is an element to like all the interviews where they're just like, yeah, you're doing so good, you're doing great, and you're like, am I?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, because then they're probably bringing you through the whole thing as well.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I don't think you owe the show much other than maybe the money you won. Because I'm a firm believer that the people who are going to make it, we're going to make it regardless. London from the first season, Alexis from the first season, like they were super talented individuals. There was no way they weren't gonna succeed. DJ, obviously.
I remember at one point that they explained to us that there were people on the show, and I think this was like when we were like halfway through it or something like that. Because there's always like the first like 3, 4 to 5 artists that get kicked off, and they're not good, but they come out and they're like, these are the best artists in the world, you're gonna love it. And then it's like very obviously, like one guy's been tattooing for like 2 years, another person's been tattooing for like 6 months. When
they had cameras on us and they bring that up, I'm just like, oh god, why are you doing this? But
they explained that it was like to help art related people who just have no artistic sense of any of that
get an
shit.
Idea that, hey man, we found the best of the best.
The layman out in the world doesn't know always like what a good artist is and what a bad artist is, so you have to like drastically show that and be like, these they're all good, but like you kind of have to direct it. It's still a story, like they're still telling a story, so they're like, we're gonna put some people on here that we know aren't gonna make it,
right? Exactly.
Because they're not very good. But that way, people are like rooting for certain ones, and so they already kind of know behind the scenes. Like,
most certainly, I was there.
Who's gonna go far?
They would definitely try to groom individuals, and there were certain people that they knew they didn't have to groom. Mm-hmm. And the thing was, as judges, and I was happy to have Hannah on the second season. And that made things a lot easier because it was one of those things where I didn't have to argue every time something stupid came up. And they were just like, oh, this person's going to go home. And I'm like, no, they're not. And they just be like, what do you mean? And I'd have to argue for that person because I'm like, us as tattooers and judges, we have a certain reputation. Anybody and again, while the show was not made for our peers, it was, we still have a fucking reputation to uphold.
Yeah.
So to have them tell us that this person should go home, that was frustrating. And I was just like, no, man, like, my friends are going to watch this. And I have to be able to look them in the eye.
I'm going to be honest, like, one of the reasons I was willing to do Best Inc. was because of you being a judge on the show. Cool. Nice. Like, not to, like, boost your ego like you need it or anything, but, it was like, at the time, there was two, and it was, like, Ink Master and Best Inc. And when what I knew of Ink Master already, because I already had friends that had done it, and it sounded like a fucking shit show. And I just didn't respect the judges on that show at all. Like, they don't do the kind of work that I do. They don't have an understanding of the work that I do.
Yeah.
So, like, why would I subject myself to being judged by somebody who's going to tell me I have to be good at everything when they themselves aren't?
Right.
Yeah.
And
then to come on Best Inc. and have, like, two judges that have a skill set that encompasses way more. Yeah. And a career that encompasses way more, to be fair, and...
That was so. That was the nice thing I've often said. It was nice to be able to be picked for that show based on my merit as a tattooer, and who I was, because I didn't look the part of what they were. I mean, they couldn't get clothes for me. Like, I was huge at that point, and I mean, like, just big. So, but the point being was, like, it was nice to be able to have been picked on that and know that I brought something to the table that was beyond what other people brought to the table. Let's fuck Best Inc. because I'm not a huge fan. And again, like I said, I don't think it really affected your career in any way, shape, or form. So now, but still talking on the subject of shows. Mm-hmm. A lot of people that are, because our show only lasted 3 seasons. You were on the second, the third. We had the third season, which I thought was kind of laughable. I met a couple of really talented artists. So nothing against them, it was more just the show.
Yeah.
And I'm familiar with a bit of the production companies, like Rick. You remember Rick,
yeah.
The executive producer, super nice guy. He actually was helping with some suggestions for the podcast. So this isn't anything against him and his trade, but it killed me that last season. So whatever. But let's go to something like Ink Master, and that's going on 17 seasons, I think. It's insane to me.
Yeah.
So I don't want to talk about the particulars of the show, because I've made it clear how I feel about the show. But in the grand scheme of things, the artists that are on that show or similar shows, whatever, how do you think that affects their careers now? Because where our show was starting to bring in good artists, and that show, like you said, there was a lot of fodder on those early episodes of both shows. Yeah. Now, I think, and again, I don't watch it, but from what I've been told and what I've heard through the ether, there's not as much fodder. Like, there's legit good tattooers that are signing up for these fucking shows. How do you think that's affecting their careers now? Like, do you think that it means that much to be on these shows?
I mean, I think even when I did the show and the people before me doing the shows, I think that how far you get really plays a part in whether or not it does anything for you. Like, if you can make it into the top 3, you're memorable.
You think it's going to help?
I think if you already are a good artist, it just makes you more memorable in general. And if you're a nice person, you have a fun personality, you seem like you'd be fun to get along with or hang out with, I think it makes it, like, in my instance, did it make me a better tattooer? No. I was going to be who I was going to be tattooing. Yeah. Like, that show doesn't make you a better tattoo artist. It just highlights what you do.
Right.
So if you take that and it presents you with opportunities to travel, to go outside of the country. I mean, that was probably the biggest takeaway for me, aside from just having cash, was being able to go. Like, I got invited overseas more because of it.
Because of the show. Because people saw you as being recognizable.
Yeah. And there's something to be said for that. Like, they're like, oh, you were on the show, so we're going to offer you a booth, or we're going to offer you a flight or a hotel room or something, or maybe all 3, and like, that definitely makes traveling more accessible. It just does, So, I mean, I'm definitely not upset about that. I think that it's definitely worked that way for a lot of other artists that have done the shows. Right. But I was already doing international travel before I did the show too. Right. So, like, how much does that help? I don't know. Like, does it make it maybe so I book some more tattoos to do while I'm over there? Sure. But again, like, if it's a country that didn't really air the show.
Well, the funny thing with that was, like, for me as the judge, like, people didn't recognize me as being a tattooer. They just recognized me from television, as a judge on the show. So I've been to Italy, Germany, it wasn't Switzerland. Where the fuck? Italy, Germany.
France.
France was fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Spain was like that, but Spain was more driven by tattooers, I think, not so much fans of the shows. But airports was what fucked me up. Like, people didn't even realize I was a tattooer. All they did was know me from the show, and they would just stop you and just be like, "Oh my God, you're on the television show, blah blah blah." I'm like, "Yeah, cool.
Photo,
I gotta
photo,
go."
photo.
Yeah, exactly. Photo. But I'm trying to catch a fucking flight, and I'm being stopped to take photos. You know. So I think that was probably the most aggravating thing. It didn't help me it didn't help me a bit for the tattooing. And everything. There was still tattooing mainly tattooers at shows. And stuff.
Yeah, and I think we know enough people who have traveled without ever having been on a show and book out. And
well, that was how and that was the thing for me. That was my whole career. Like I've literally traveled the world, you know, and it was based off of tattooing. It had nothing to do with the television shows.
And I think that, like, one thing that people forget when they see somebody go on a show and they do well, and then afterwards they're kind of like everywhere for a little bit or whatever. That doesn't last forever. You know, like, you're only on a show once, and maybe they'll do a rerun every now and again, and then you'll have more people in the airport that are like, "Can I get a picture with you?"
Yeah.
But, like, it doesn't hold up your career forever. Like, this is something that you still have to fucking be good at your job.
I think that's what it comes down to. Pon made a good point when we talked to him. He made a comment in saying that it turned other tattooers who were, I don't want to use the word lesser, but tattooers who weren't amazing, it pushed them to a different level that that may not have reached had they not been on the show.
Yeah.
And I will admit, like, some of the challenges we made people go through, I had a hard time with it. Like, I was just like, what the fuck are you doing to these people? This is like a dog and pony show. You know, but I mean, when you see what you guys were capable of doing, it was impressive. You know, in the time that you were given, because I would have just been like, go fuck yourself, I'm not doing that. It's no fucking way. I was like, this is a joke.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta like a challenge. If you're gonna go on a show, like, if you have mad anxiety or you don't want to just live in fucking absolute chaos for 2 months, like, then don't do
I couldn't
a
even
goddamn
imagine.
show.
I couldn't even imagine. Like I said, from my end of things, it was a bitch. Welcome to Richmond.
Sorry, we're very near a fire department.
Oh, dude, that's so I think, I get that. It's like, you know, you have to really be willing to embrace it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and like, it's definitely, it's important to, like, have a level of, like, fuck it, you know, like, mentality when you go on those shows. Like, you gotta just be ready for anything. And,
just ride it and see where it takes
like, you. And you can't let it get you upset. Like, you can't, you know, I mean, there was definitely, like, goals I had set for myself on before I went on the show, and I think I had, like, 3 goals, and I only maintained one of them.
Which was? What were the 3 goals?
The 3 goals were, don't cry. I didn't want to cry. Don't misspell anything. and don't look like the crazy girl on the show. Don't be a crazy bitch on the show.
Did your season have the crazy girl?
A little bit.
I think the first one had the real crazy one.
Yeah, I think the girl that maybe could have been like a force kind of went off early, and then the other one that was maybe gonna do some crazy shit also, like, kind of went off early. Like, we didn't really have. I don't. See, that's the thing. I've said this before. I think it's because of the production. I don't know if they didn't have the wherewithal, the experience of doing these types of shows, and I don't think that's entirely true, because Rick, the executive producer, was fucking good at what he did, and he did a couple of shows that dealt with a lot of drama. So I don't know if it was just a conscious decision on his part to not dwell on that shit. It kind of felt like our season kind of felt like that wasn't the
it was more art based, which is what burned my ass at the end when they had that horrible challenge with the wannabe with the rock stars, and I was just kind of like, with the celebrity tattoos, and I'm like it was frustrating, because it was like it came down to you two, this horrible fucking challenge, and we're just like, are you fucking kidding me? Yeah. Like, it was, I'm not even going to get into how that, like, I remember being in the green room and just being like, I don't fucking care, you guys pick. And they were just kind of like, you can't do that. I'm like, dude, this was the worst fucking challenge ever. And they were just like, no, it's not like that. I'm like, yeah, it is. And we ended up, Hannah and I had to go through the whole thing and decide based on that, on what we felt throughout the entire fucking season. But whatever. I think I might have even said that on one of the other podcasts. Yeah. So let's move on. So we're talking about travel. How important is travel to, and to me, I don't think travel to a young, inexperienced tattooer is necessarily something that is, I don't think it's a necessity at all. I think they should be concentrating more on skills and people, their people person, customer service than they should about traveling and world, like getting a larger scale.
I don't know, man. Yeah. I mean, you talked to Kelly.
Yes.
And I don't know if you got into travel with Kelly, but
we went in. So what we talked about with Kelly, and for anybody who didn't know, we did. She was here. Well, I did her a week earlier. She did bring up the travel. I brought up your travels with her, and then the one you did with Jessa when you came to my shop. Mm-hmm. But let's say for more, let's say more in the way of international.
That was like the first trip that we did was before we did the show.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
Oh, I spaced that. Yeah.
We Kelly and I met briefly, and at a guest spot. I went out to the shop she was working at, guested, met her.
Out in Massachusetts.
Met her, and then we had a great time. We hit it off, and I think it was like a couple weeks later, she was like, I'm thinking about going on tour around the country, tattooing at different shops. Do you want to go with me? And
you guys would. She's tattooing less than you?
No, she's tattooed 1 year more than I did.
Okay.
And so she was like, I think we'd been maybe like 4 years into tattooing at that point, maybe less, maybe 3.
Oh, so you're basically exactly what I said.
You should be concentrating on tattoo artists, and I had done my first guest spot at that shop, and then I came back 6 months later, and Kelly had gotten hired, and I did another guest spot, and then a few months after that, she was like, I'm thinking about going on a tour. What do you think? And I was like, what do I think? And she was like, you want to go? And I was like, fuck it.
So how did that? So did that help you become a better artist? Did it help with your?
Absolutely.
Just your skills in general, dealing with people.
But this is the reason why. So the shop I came up in, I had a terrible apprenticeship. The guy that was supposed to teach me how to tattoo ditched out about 5 months in. And left. He just was like, I'm gonna go open a shop down the street. And I was like, oh, so do I go there now? I work there now? And he was like, no. When you have clients, you can come work for me. But for now, just stay here and get clients. And then...
Wow, that's far.
Yeah. And I'd done a handful of tattoos at the time. And then I just basically got thrown in. They were like, all right, you're good. So just, you tattoo now.
You're a tattooer. Congratulations. Yep. So 5 months.
5 months apprenticeship, and then I was tattooing at the next, January 2009.
Shit.
They're like, you tattoo now.
And were you in the same shop for that entire time before you went on the road?
Yeah.
Okay, so you were in
I stayed at that shop. I stayed at Studio 13 for 8 years.
Oh, okay.
7, I guess, before I came here. And, and so, it was... I don't know, 2-3 years in my career, and then Kelly's like, "We're going on a fucking road trip around the world, and we'll just tattoo."
And how long did that first trip last?
2 months almost.
2 months on the road. That's fucking crazy. Yeah. That's absolutely incredible.
We basically I went from Indiana, picked her ass up in Massachusetts, and then we started the tour.
Okay, so now looking back on it, so now you also still continued to work in that shop when you were home. Yep. What do you consider to be the most important? Do you feel that with all the traveling that you did, did it feel safe? Did you keep it safe to have a home base to go back to? Because I think Kelly kind of bounced around a little bit after.
We went back to our shops after. She went back to the place she'd been working at, the one I met her at, and so it was basically, we just kind of pooled our resources, because at that point in time, I had met a few artists and she had met a few artists, and we were like, let's just go to their shops and we'll tattoo with them and see, just do this fucking cross country thing, try to book appointments, and it worked. I don't know why it worked. We really didn't have much of a presence anywhere, plan, Instagram wasn't really a thing. I couldn't get Instagram on my phone yet because I didn't have an iPhone. And so this was pre-Instagram, just Facebook, MySpace, that kind of shit. And Kelly had more of a presence on the internet at that point than I did, and
yeah, she was with I think Tattoo Now at the time too. So Tattoo Now kind of had a good. That was before the shit hit the fan.
She had a thing there,
Yeah.
and then she also just kind of I think she'd had like a magazine article come out too, so she'd like made her first like article. And
so to me, that was the biggest thing back in the day. Like when you got a magazine article,
yeah,
that blew you the fuck up. Like you were guaranteed to work conventions because people really kind of like. It wasn't like it is today with Instagram, and Instagram back then wasn't quite as large of a beast it is now. You know what I mean?
Right.
But when you went to conventions,
we didn't post tattoos at that time. Like everything that Kelly was posting on Instagram, because I think we got it like. Shortly after we'd become friends, she got Instagram because it was like the prototype or whatever, and she was just posting like suit pictures and fucking
that's right,
us doing dumb shit, you know, and like so it wasn't like tattoo posting yet, even, you know, like it just is a fun.
So that's what I'm saying. I think with magazines, it was like the big thing because once you got into a magazine, especially if you had a good presence in magazines, then tattoo conventions definitely wanted you at them. So if you contacted them, they were like I think the Richmond convention. I remember the first year when it was still Billy Eason, when it was the Richmond convention. You know, I remember going up to Billy Eason, and I was only tattooing I think maybe 2.5 years, 3 years, and I walked up to Billy because everybody's like, oh, he's the guy who runs the convention, and I was like, hey man, I want to do the convention. You know, I'd love to do the show, and he just turned around and looked at me, and just turned around and walked away. Just blew me the fuck off, and I'm like. What the fuck? Like,
wait, is he taller than you?
No, it wasn't.
So he like
that
did
was
one of
yeah,
these.
that was
looked up,
that was even
and then
worse.
He, like,
well, he was still a big guy though. No, Billy was a big. He was a presence, dude.
Nope.
This motherfucker was a presence. He was like.
Did he do one of these?
He was like the white trash version of like the Colonel. You know what I mean? Like this guy, he was an impressive motherfucker. He was frightening. You know what I mean? Okay. And again, I wasn't that guy. He had a presence. Yeah, he had a mad presence. Okay. You know. All right. And I wasn't that guy. I was like a young guy from Long Island, New York. You know.
Did you still have the hair though?
No, that back then my hair used to just be greased back. I used to just have greasy hair that was just
a greaser,
back. Yeah,
just a regular greaser.
Good head of hair. You know. But it wasn't until like maybe 6 months later, because that same convention. I was walking around with my flash and I was trying to sell it. There was one guy named Mark Fairchild who had blown me off on Friday at the convention. A good friend of mine, Dave, who was also selling flash. He's like, yeah, I just sold a bunch of flash to that guy. And I'm like, motherfucker, this cocksucker wouldn't even look at my shit. So I walked up to him and I'm like, hey man. And I just threw my flash down the table. Because that was when you were able to walk around with folders.
Yeah.
And I was like, yo man, you want to look at my flash? And he's like, whatever. And he'll look. And so he's flipping through and he's like, this stuff is pretty good. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. Well, I was like, interested in buying? I had like 2 sets of 10 sheets, And he's like, he goes, you tattoo like this? And I'm like, well, I think so. And I used to carry my portfolio around for those people who don't believe in portfolios.
We have a whole table.
Yeah, exactly. Right, well, that's the thing. I got into an argument with somebody about that too. But I threw my portfolio down. He was flipping through it, and he got across a Betty Page painting tattoo that I had done. And he's looking, and he's looking at my work, and he's goes behind the counter, pulls out his booth, and he pulls out a magazine, flips it open, and I just happen to have 2 opposing pages of art, of tattoos. So it was 4 and 4.
Yeah.
And he goes, is this you? And I'm like, that's my Betty Page piece. And he's just like, you want to do a convention? And I'm like, if I can get a booth for it. And he goes, yeah, you want to come to Scranton? And I'm like, fuck yeah, I do. I did there's a bus. I did the Scranton convention in September, which was almost like, shit, it was nearly a year later.
Yeah.
But at that Scranton convention, I ran into Billy Eason, and Billy had seen me at the Scranton convention. He goes, you want to come to Richmond this year? I don't even think he remembers fucking throwing me shade in Richmond the year prior. And I'm like, yeah, I do. And I was doing shows literally like probably, at that point I was probably doing because I was still working at Lotus and they weren't cool on me leaving all the time. But I think I was doing shows like maybe every other month.
I mean, that's still kind of what it took for me and Kelly too, like we did guest spots and we tried to strategically pick shops that had artists in it that were, like good and, did fucking really awesome stuff. So we could, if we weren't going to like get in with something, we were going to at least like learn some shit while we were there and like watch them work and try to pick apart like how they were doing tattoos and stuff. And so like, I mean, every shop we went to was either a fucking banger shop that like was killing it on the internet or had done like conventions, or they like, I don't know, had some kind of a presence somewhere,
Right.
or it was somebody who we just like, we were so obsessed with their work that we just wanted to know like so badly how they did it,
their stuff.
And I mean, what better way than to just hang out with them, meet them, talk to them, become really good friends with them. And every shop we went to, I think we had an amazing time at every fucking shop, and we were so welcomed everywhere. Like honestly, like we had a great time, and it was a crazy thing. Like we would drive for like 9 hours, get to where we were going, fucking draw our tattoos until fucking, I don't know, 3-4 in the morning, and then get up and have to go straight in and start tattooing. And there were a couple times where we would just like drive, draw, not sleep, start tattooing, like, and then start another like, I mean, we just did crazy dumb shit. But it was like, when you're forced into those positions, like, you find out like how fast you are at drawing, like how creative you can be under pressure. Like, can you handle like a situation? Like, I don't recommend it for a long period of time. Yeah. But there is something to be said for like, when you put yourself under pressure, you really find out like how far you can push yourself.
Well, and it's funny because when you think about the guys that never leave their shops, or they need all that time to just sit down and be creative and come up with something that, like, they'll spend hours and hours, sometimes days, doing a drawing for a sleeve or a back piece, or just a simple piece, a single piece. I agree with you. I think that being on I was like that during conventions. Like, you'd wake up in the morning, you talk to people, the day before, because back then we didn't book appointments. You showed up at the convention, you came, what came up. So whether it be big, small, whatever, and you did 2 to 3 tattoos a day every weekend. So you did on average, probably between, minimum 5 to as many as sometimes 6 or 9 tattoos in a weekend. And some of them were big, But it was every day. You'd book your appointments the day before, but that first Friday, you're doing all your drawings right on the spot, and then you're tattooing, and then you're booking your appointment maybe for the next day because they came up to the booth first.
And this was pre-iPad. So, like, Kelly and I didn't have iPads. Yeah. We had sketchbooks and tracing paper.
Yep. Oh, same, yeah.
We brought our own Thermofax shit to, like, just in case, because some shops don't have them.
Yeah. God, first time I went to Europe, I was
so spoiled. I was like, I got to Nick Baxter's shop. When he had his private studio at the time.
Was it down in Texas?
Yeah, in Austin. And we went to, we were like, can we work out of your private studio? He was like, sure. And then we get there and we're like, where's your Thermofax? And he's like, no, I don't have one of those. Because everything he did was drawn on.
He drew everything
was drawn on. Yeah. Like, he would have a little sketch of what he wanted to do, like with some kind of rendered drawing, so he knew where all of his highlights and lowlights were. And then he just fucking draw that shit on. And we were like, right. Is there another shop that we could maybe?
Is there any way? I remember being in New York doing a guest spot in a shop there, and the shop was literally leaving their shop to go to a shop up the street. Yeah. And they had an agreement that you can use our Thermofax, but we got to be able to use your copier, and they would just bounce back.
Literally,
and forth.
We went down the street to some shop that didn't even know who the fuck Nick was. We were just like,
they're like, who is he? He's where?
What is? And and Nick was like on the down low, working out of a fucking apartment that wasn't zoned for business at all. He's like, yeah, it's my apartment, and it was a studio apartment that he just tattooed out.
Well, that's, if you think about it, the whole, for the years of New York, the early,
Oh yeah,
all of
he didn't even live in it though. Yeah. It was just for art. And then he had his own little spot further away, and so it was just kind of this real. But we slept in the shop. We were like, can we get out of
that's
cat
legit
bed?
shit.
And he was
not for nothing.
Yeah.
That's fucking killer. I remember Bob Terrell telling me he did a guest spot at our shop. And I felt bad for him. We, my wife and I, it's not like we're all night partiers and stuff like that. But he, and he's the kind of guy who stay up till 5 in the fucking morning. Yeah. And he gets to my house and he's like, we're sitting on the couch, we go to dinner, get back to the house, it's 11 o'clock, and I'm like, dog is in his lap, and I'm like, dude, I think we're pretty beat. And I was like, man, I'm sorry. And he goes, no, man, you know what? I was just sleeping in the front room of the Paul shop, and that was when he had the tiny little place in in the East Village.
Yeah.
And so he's literally on an air mattress behind the counter, and the fucking front window of the shop is literally right here. So you're sleeping there, people walking by and stuff, and he's like, man, I think I'm gonna go to bed now too. And I'm like I felt bad for him. So he would come out to our house. He did it 3 times. And he'd be in bed by midnight. And I was like, oh my God, this is Bob Terrell, and he's crashing out early. This is incredible, So it's funny to see stuff like that.
Yeah.
Definitely. But it's cool that you had those experiences.
Oh, I loved it.
Like just sleeping in the fucking shop.
It was one of my favorite times. Like, was traveling around the country with Kelly doing the most insane things. I mean, we stopped at the dumbest places to get like, we stopped on the highway because there was a dinosaur statue out in a field, and we were like, we got to take pictures with this dinosaur statue. Like, so it was an abandoned
you gotta wait
field.
till morning to get good light.
Oh no, it was like middle of the day, and we were like, fucking pull over. We're doing it. And like, it was amazing.
Well, I think that's an amazing, the fact that you have those kinds of stories, because I don't want to say that people don't have all those types of experiences much anymore, but that was one of those things. Like, when I first got into this business, one of the fellows that I worked with, this guy Tom Butler, would say that. He's like, dude, this is the one job that you can go anywhere in the world and tattoo.
Which I had no idea. When I got into tattooing, like, I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to travel with tattooing. I just wanted to do art that made money. I was like, I just want to be able to be an artist that makes some fucking money.
Yeah, if you told
bills,
me,
and then it was like, I think when I was an apprentice, the guy that was supposed to apprentice me got into a convention in fucking Palm Springs. And so we were like, oh shit, you can just do this anywhere? And you just get on a plane, fucking, and the next thing you know, it's like, yeah, you can go to France, you can go to Japan, you can go New Zealand, whatever the fuck you want to do. There's tattooing everywhere.
That's true, and that's one of those things. Like I said, if you had told me that, like, I was going to travel the world doing this, I would have never believed you back in the day. I was just happy to pick up a new trade.
It was crazy to me, and it was definitely like my favorite thing about it. And that's, like, it's not going to be for everybody though.
Right.
Like, because it is like it's a how much do you want to push yourself, and how far do you want to go, and like how many crazy nights not sleeping do you want to, like, and there's a lot of artists that are very obsessed with like work-life balance.
Right.
And I understand that, but like when I was young in the game, like 2, 3, 4, 5 years in, I didn't give a shit about that. I was like, I just want to fucking tattoo. I want to draw. I want to paint. Like,
I think that's, it's true, because the work-life balance, but I think this was my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I had work, and you could do that anywhere in the world, and then life was travel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I mean, I met my wife on the road. You know what I mean? Like, there was so much that was to be gleaned from that. That to me was just the life experience.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? And
some
traveling in
in
life was just the same.
Were met traveling. Like, we met Jesso at a convention, like at a.
And then the following year, she followed you guys on the road.
And then we were like, dude, you want to go on tour? And she was like, yeah, why not? And then she learned why maybe it was not a great idea to go on tour with us, because we lived off of like coffee, and she was like, I want food, and we were like, yeah, we're going to Starbucks. She's like, no, like real food, and we were like, we'll get you a coffee, calm down. Just like in the back crying, we're like, you'll be fine, here's an egg.
See, that's the thing though, I think with us, like we had more of a bougie experience. It wasn't like this sleeping in the back of cars.
Oh yeah,
and, like,
we did so. Dude, we bought cats while we were traveling.
Jesus.
We picked up cats in Las Vegas. 2.
And would you take them on the road with you?
Yeah.
For how long?
Well, at least another month.
Where the fuck were the cats shitting?
We had a litter box.
In the car?
Yeah. You just scoop it.
No, I got nothing. No, I can't. No.
People take dogs on trips. Why can't you take cats on trips?
Because you can walk a fucking dog.
You can walk a cat?
You can't walk a fucking cat.
Sure you can.
No, you can't.
You're just not trying hard enough.
Brandon cat. You ain't fucking walking no cat. You're going to hold it up and hope it does something, but there's no fucking walking a cat.
Well, yeah.
It's like a cat ain't going to paw out the fucking door. It's going to do its business wherever the fuck it does its business.
Well, you give them a litter box. It's fine.
In a car.
Yeah, in the back, in the floor of the car. Yeah.
I got nothing. No, I'm not touching that. That's just.
We you scoop it.
No, that's just nasty. That's just nasty. Yeah. Well, so this brings me to my next subject. Friendships that you build, camaraderie.
Yeah.
One of the things I had said during the Explorer, the one thing I noticed, especially with your generation, is the fact that I don't know if it's just looking out for one another, or if it's recognizing, equal talent, and I'm not sure if it's looking to hook up those people, if it's looking to just want to be around those people, or if it's just not wanting to let that person out of your fucking sight so they get beyond you. You know what I mean? Because that's the shitty part of me saying that. You know what I mean?
I would say for me personally, and maybe it's different for other people, but for me, I mean, I was a weird art kid growing up. I was a weird art kid in college. Like, You were talking about like selling flash, when you're like,
Right.
I did some tattoos and I walked around conventions. So I did that in high school. I
Right.
have a flash set from fucking high school. Had never even picked up a tattoo machine at all. But I was like, I drew some flash, and I went to a fucking convention in goddamn Indiana. Oh, fuck, what's the worst city in Indiana? The one that Michael Jackson was born in.
Oh, I don't even know where. I have no idea.
Gary,
Indiana. Okay.
I went to a tattoo convention in Gary, Indiana.
So that was was it like a
biker
show?
Unicorn flash to some fucking bikers, dude. And
did they buy it?
No, absolutely not. They were like, "What is this child doing here? Where are her parents?" I don't look my age now. Imagine when I was like 15, I probably looked like I was 12.
That's actually a good point.
Yeah. And they were like, "Whose kid is this?"
And it's the funny thing about that too is you're right, because the biker shows back then, like we used to have like up in Schenectady, you'd have like the Am Jam and stuff like that. Yeah, it wasn't the kind of place you brought kids.
So for me, like, being just a weird art kid forever and like not really like fitting into the Midwest and like that whole crowd, and, like very conservative upbringing of that area. Like when I found tattooing and I was like, oh, these are like, I like this. Like, this is what I've always wanted.
This is where you want to be.
And this is like, and then meeting people like Kelly, and I was like, oh, there's other fucking weirdos out here just like me. Like, and I remember when I didn't even meet Kelly at first. I met her station. I met where she worked before I ever met Kelly.
Oh, you were working in the shop before she came in.
Yeah, like I came to guest down at that shop because of a different artist. Another female artist was there because we were so rare. Right. That when you found one, you were like, we should be friends, right? Like, you're also a girl. And so this other girl like had gotten hired there, and I was coming back to a guest with her. And then she was like, yeah, this is Kelly's station. And everything was like pink and purple.
That's fucking
fun. Like, if it didn't come in that color, she had spray painted it that color. And I was like, what? And there was like a Christmas tree set up, and it was not Christmas. And she was hiding sodas in it, and I was like, what the fuck? And there was like My Little Pony, like goth My Little Ponies on the thing, but then like Star Wars art, but then like just all kinds of weird
just kind of weird random shit.
Just all over the place, but girly, but like creepy cute, creepy goth cute, and at the time, like I was trying to fit in with tattooing, so like I was like, okay, girl, like I didn't get it. I was like, you can't be a girl and be a tattoo artist. That's not how this works. Like, because I was trying to, like, to get into a shop as a girl, you had to be like a dude. You had to be one of the guys.
Well, I think that is true. I mean, back in the day, I remember somebody on, I don't remember if it was your season or the last season, but somebody made a comment about being a female in the business at that point, and I remember Hannah taking offense to it because Hannah had been in the business for so much longer. And she goes, you don't really have a clue as to what it was like.
No, and that's the thing. Like, I'm coming in after like Carrie Barba and Hannah and these other women, but again, like her generation, even less women, like very like a handful.
Like I think those women, like the women like you just mentioned, like Carrie Barba, Julie Moon up north. You know what I mean? You had a lot of people in the business. And they kept their femininity, but it was one of those things where they didn't take bullshit. They didn't fuck around.
It was
on Long Island, you had like Big and Little Cindy. You had Marguerite. These were women that they were able to circumvent, or they were able to swim in those waters because they wouldn't fuck around. And I think it was also the idea of like they were talented.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it took a certain amount of people to look. Back then, guys didn't necessarily want to get tattooed by women. And I think we went through a change where it was like more and more women were getting into the business. And good or bad, dudes wanted to get tattooed by them. And women always wanted to get tattooed by women.
So and that became the thing. Like, that was the selling point when I came into the industry. It was like every shop needed its one female artist to get the women in the door. Right. And so that was like, oh, we already have a girl, so
see that kind of
up on girls.
So the thing that kind of freaked me out, and this was a few years ago, another artist who will not be named. We were talking about him earlier, and one of the things we were talking about how the business was, and this is before I feel that the business really kind of started to tank, and tank in a weird way. You know what I mean? Like back then, it wasn't really necessarily tanking, but it was like you can see the change in happening in shops and in the business itself, the amount of shows that were happening, suppliers, everything was just stupid. And he was just like, dude, you got to get a couple of women in your shop. And I'm like, now you can look
You're
at.
welcome.
Well,
we'll do it for you.
But here's my problem with that. So while you can look at that, I looked at that as being a very misogynistic thing to say.
It absolutely is.
and I'm just like, dude, you want me to hire a woman because she's a woman? And I know this is good, and not for nothing. That's not a PC thing to say right now, especially with the inclusion and whatnot that we deal with.
That was definitely the thing. It was like, hire a girl because she'll get the girls in the shop. You know, like she'll make it feel safe for the women who want to get tattooed but don't trust a man to do it. And that was very much a thing when I was coming up in tattooing. And so it was hard if there was already a girl in a shop. If you approached it for an apprenticeship, you got turned down because they already had one.
Right.
Or if you were too much of a girl, they were like, that you can't hang with the boys because we're going to make a lot of misogynistic jokes and you won't be able to deal. Or they thought you were going to be too sensitive, or you wouldn't be able to hang.
But this is why I say what I'm about to say is, I think that if you're already in this world, mm-hmm. and in the world of tattooing, that you should have already kind of dealt with all that bullshit, and the fact that you should be able to swim with the sharks because you're a tattooer. You should, and again, this is why I may not be cut out for the world we've now turned into, because I think that for me, I want to hire a woman based on her merits,
right? Not
on the fact that she's a female.
You would be in the minority.
But to me, that's just as bad as being a misogynistic pig.
No, it's not. I mean? No, it's not, because we put out a call to hire here, and we've been classically categorized because it's a female-owned shop that they think you have to be a female to work at the shop. So now I'm getting it on the other side, where they're like, right. Oh, as a dude, I can't work there because this is girls only. I'm like, we have dudes.
Dude, I've had people come up to me, people I know, and they're like, "You working where?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "I'm working over at Teresa's shop." And they're like, "Why the fuck you working there?" And I'm like, "Cause I know her."
Yeah.
Like it was one of those things. Like, we're friends. Like I'm not. Like, I don't understand. And to them, they were just like, I don't understand why you're working there. Isn't that a girl shop? And I'm like, well, actually, at that time it was. There was only, only had women working there.
The fucking shops ebb and flow, man. The artists change.
Well, and at that point, I knew Erin as well. So it was like, and I think I knew Jess when she was still, I had just met Jess there. I think
you met her, yeah.
Yeah, so it was one of those things where it's like, I was like, dude, I just want to go to a cool shop. I want to go to a creative shop. And they're all fucking good.
We have no stipulations here. There's no, requirement.
Well, that's good to know. If anybody's out there,
if anybody out there that has a dick would like to maybe guest at our shop,
so you can say that. I can't say shit like that. That is unfucking fair. I have had to.
Oh no, Joe! It's absolutely fair because it's called payback. It's called years of being in the minority. So this is what you earn when you've been repressed.
Okay, I will kind of give you that because it's funny. There's a bunch of film critics and critics and such I watch online, and listening to these guys bitch and complain about the woman empowerment in film and whatnot.
Sure, yeah.
I'm like,
they're like, no, I can't get a job.
But it's one of those things. It's like, do you guys not remember the last 70 years of film where women were just basically exploited for the fucking?
So do you not remember the last 50 years of tattooing where women just weren't even allowed in the shop?
No, but I do understand. No, and that's the thing. I do get it.
So I guess I'm not allowed in the shop because I have a dick. And
but the funny thing is, there are shops that are like that, and I think that
but you gotta understand where these women are coming from. Most of them, I can tell you right now that half of the girls that work in my shop have come from shops where they were, put into very misogynistic positions, where they were, used for their bodies, for their looks. They were taken advantage of in some way or another, paid less than the other people that worked there.
See, that's
held back from becoming an actual tattoo artist. They were apprentices for way longer than anybody else in the shop. They were overlooked by men, or they were treated as the wife of the shop, made to do laundry and cook and run errands and all this other shit for these guys. So when they go and they form a shop of women, it's because it's a shared experience. They're like, you also have experienced these things. Wouldn't it be nice to be in a shop where I don't have to hear somebody bitch and complain about working with women? There was one time we had a guy working in the shop, doesn't work here anymore, it doesn't matter. But at one point, complained because we were having a day where we were all talking about being on our periods and shit. Like, we were just like, it was a full-on bitch fest about, like, just the issues of having to be a woman.
Right.
And he was like, God, I hate this. Like, I wish I worked around dudes or something. And I was like, there's the fucking door, man. Like, this is the first time in my life as a tattoo artist
that you
where I've been in a room with enough people who understand what it's like to fucking be on your period and have to tattoo. And I'm sorry, but, like, maybe you should shut the fuck up and listen.
Just play
and try to, like, maybe understand where I'm coming from a little bit. Like, I have to do when I worked in a shop full of fucking dudes who wanted to bitch about their ball sacks or the nuts or I don't know, like, whatever the fuck.
I think you should just be like, dude, just pretend everybody's got pretend period means hangover.
Like, no, I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. Dude, we're dealing with blood on people's skin, people passing out, people pissing on the floor after they pass out, and me having my period scares you?
Yeah, and that freaks you out.
Oh, no. Like, you get some little gloves for you and some earmuffs?
And this is why guys don't like female shops.
Because they can't hang.
Well, I guess I guess you have a much more intimate knowledge of what it is to be a woman in a tattoo shop. Like,
absolutely,
it is one of those situations,
yes.
and you are right. Like, I mean,
but you can't hate on a group of people who've systematically been repressed in so many ways, finally coming together and carving out a space for themselves and just being like, you know what, we don't want to deal with your boy drama. Like, we're tired of it, and we're done, and we just want to have our space, and, like, dudes can come in and get tattooed, but sorry, we're just not going to hire you, like, right. and the thing is, there's so many other options for them. There's not as many options for women, for trans people, for people of color, like.
Well, I think at this point, yeah, things have opened up in a way that I think that is slowly becoming. I don't want to say it's a thing of the past. It's never going to be a thing of the past. There's always going to be bigoted.
Yeah, we always have stuff to work on, right? Yeah. We always have things we got to.
Well, I think everything is going to find its place.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter whether it be for good or bad. I think everything's going to find its place.
I am happy to say that there are more spaces now that are safe for different minority groups. Whether it's gender, whether it's race, right. Whether it's whatever. But like you're finding these places where people can safely exist in them without being torn down or shoved aside or absolutely just taken advantage of, right. Or worse, Right. I'm glad that that's changing and that my shop can be a part of that and be a space for that. And for dudes out there that think that you can't work here, fuck them. Because assume without ever talking to me, yeah. Or reaching out. I mean, you hate it if somebody comes to your shop and asks one of your employees if they can come work there, right? You're like, I'm the owner. You talk to me. So it's the same fucking thing. If you're gonna talk shit about my shop, you're gonna be like, oh, they don't let dudes in there. Why don't you fucking come and ask me, bro?
Right.
Like, why don't you grow a pair?
Well, it's funny. Like with you guys just the Richmond just had the animating show. Mm-hmm. Back in October, and one of the things I complained about was it's a shame that it had to happen on the same weekend as the Richmond show.
Sure, yeah.
Because, but I mean, having gone to both shows, I think you would have been hard pressed to see people from one show go to the other and vice versa. You know what I mean? I think it was two different groups of people. Well,
and I think that also just kind of illuminates the idea that tattooing is branching into a lot of different groups now. There were less available styles of tattooing when you were coming in, and you were a forerunner in creating new styles, right? Yeah. And so now we're seeing like that furthering. It's like now people are like, oh, well, if you can do that, like then maybe I can do the thing that I do, right. And like we're just seeing that like compounding and exponentially greater, And so like the new fandoms that are hitting, like. Anime is really big right now, so of course we're seeing that like hit tattooing. It's a very tattooable medium.
Almost certainly, yeah.
Cartoons in general have
cartoons, yeah,
classically Bugs Bunny and shit.
And even before Bugs Bunny, I mean, like you always had some kind of cartoon aspect to tattooing, yeah. Because it was such a recognizable, easily tattooed thing that just it transcends generations, yeah.
And it works. It's like black lines, like solid colors. Like
right.
this is gonna stay forever. It's gonna look great, you know.
Right.
And so like it's not a fucking hard guess that it was like, oh yeah, we can do anime tattoos.
Oh, it was an easy out to guess, most certainly.
Absolutely.
But I think that what my point being is the groups of people that make up both of those conventions, if they took place on, because I didn't work Richmond, I just came down to see friends, for a bunch of different reasons I didn't work Richmond, but the fact that I got to go to Anime Inc. on Sunday, the first question, like I ran into a handful of people who knew who I was, and they were just like, "The fuck are you doing here?" And I'm like, "I don't know, gee, it's a fucking tattoo convention. Yeah. Why wouldn't I want to check it out?" And they're just like, "You know what kind of show it is, right?" And I'm like, "All right, first of all, it's not like I walked into a fucking gay bar, dude. You know, and it's not like I haven't gone to gay bars to hang out with friends of mine. You know what I mean?" But that did not sound correct. But whatever. The fact is, it's like it's a place, like, and it's full of my peers. Whether or not they either think I don't like them, they don't like me, they think that for some reason
that you could never like anime.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Exactly. And it's like, I mean, I did their podcast. The gal who runs it, and she came up and she's like, "Hey, would you do our podcast?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And she goes, "Really?" I'm like, yeah, they haven't aired the podcast. Oh. But I think part of it is because I was honest about the situation. It was kind of like me saying what I just said. It's like, yeah, man, I came here because it's a tattoo convention. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, would I get a booth at this? Probably not, because I don't think anybody would walk up to me and get tattooed. You know what I mean? I think people would just be like, audience. Yeah, I don't think people really think, because they're going to look at me as like, "I'm just an old guy. What the fuck's he know about anything?"
This is the thing, though. Like, as we see tattooing splinter into groups and conventions pop up that are like very specific for its audience, right? It's like, you know, you don't go to Comic-Con and expect to see furries, you know?
Yeah. Have you ever been to the Dragon Con?
No, I haven't.
Oh.
But like you're gonna see like a little bit of it, but that's not that show. You know what I mean?
It's definitely
the theme
it's like a little subculture of that.
If you go to a sci-fi thing,
but here's the thing,
it's not a horror thing.
But here's the thing, though, with that show, dude, I would totally dig doing that kind of stuff. We don't get asked to do it because everybody assumes that you have to specialize in anime, and I'm like, no, you fucking don't.
Well, that's like, I mean, but that's indicative of like, you know, just so much of our industry where like a lot of younger artists are being taught like to pick a style. It's like, you got to find your style, you got to find that style, you got to find it, and you got to market it, you got to monetize it, and then make money off of it, and don't ever change it, and just pick this one style.
All right, so now let me ask you a question. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think you need to find your fucking style, or do you think that you should? Me personally, I've always been of the opinion that you do everything, and you let it find you. You go to the direction that you feel comfortable with. As
somebody who's taught an entire seminar on finding your style, like the whole message is just that you can't find it. Like you literally, like the more you try to like push yourself into a box, the worse it gets. You know, like you really, if you're not just drawing all the time and drawing like your own shit. I don't mean like tracing somebody else's stuff or looking at somebody else's work and then trying to just replicate what they're doing. It's like spend some time in your own head and with your own piece of paper and do that enough times, and eventually your stuff just looks like your stuff.
Exactly.
You know, and that's called a style. And
I think, but my problem with what you just, not my problem with what you just said, what you just said makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. My problem with the trade right now is the fact that most people are pushing it to the fact that, like you said, you have to find your style. You have to push that style. You have to.
That's and the problem with that is because it's coming from like online presence, Instagram or Facebook or whatever social media thing you use. It's this thing where like if you go on my page and you just scroll back a little bit, like all my stuff looks like my stuff because I've been tattooing for 15 years.
Which is exactly why what I was attracted to when I saw your work. It's not the fact that you did everything well. It's the fact that you did everything well, but it looked like you did it.
Right.
And I think that's something that's getting lost, especially with things like anime.
Is that
and everything.
You have an artist who's 1 year in the game, 2 years in the game, maybe 5 years in the game, and they're looking at mine and they're like, okay, so I just need to make everything look the same, right? But they don't know that took me 15 years to get there.
Right. When you're aping somebody else's stuff and pretending that's you making it all look like you did it, it's not really what it is.
No, and it takes time to get there. It's like you're not going to have that from the get-go. Like you're just not going to be able to dial it in that much from day one. Like I'm sure there's people that are just like that good. But
oh, most certainly, yeah.
Yeah, but
I mean,
it
those
wasn't
people do
me.
exist,
You
yeah.
know, like I definitely spent like the first 5-6 years of my career just trying to figure out what the fuck I even wanted to do. You know, and like that's part of it is just like you have to have enough clients that like let you do your own thing to like really start to kind of get there, because the rest of the time you're just fucking working. Like it is a job, you know, and like you do have to kind of do and cater to what people come in and want you to tattoo, because you're trying to fucking pay your bills. So like there's an aspect to it that like you're gonna have to take on shit that you normally wouldn't do, but I never was mad about it because it taught me a new skill and a new little thing that I can like at any point be like, you know what, I learned something when I did that biomech piece and I can plug that right in here, you know.
I think working inside a street shop, you know, back in the day was one of the best things that could possibly happen. My first year of tattooing, first year and a half and 2 years of tattooing was just black and gray.
Yeah.
We had a ton of black and gray flash on the shop. We had a bunch, and then when we didn't do black and gray, we were doing like a JD Crow, you know, Panther, or JD Crow Eagle, or JD Crow Indian Head, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things that we never took it off the wall. We never used the line work that came with the flash.
Yeah.
We always took the line work, brought it in the back, put it on a light table, and then traced out our own line drawing. And if we did that same eagle 3 times that week, that eagle looked slightly different every single time. Now, a lot of traditional tattooers would look at that and be like, well, dude, that's not how it's done. Like, it should look like the same eagle every single time. And I'm like, no, dude. Like, people would come in and be like, I'm looking to get like an eagle. I'm like, well, cool, dude. Do me a favor. Look around the shop. And they'd look and they go, I like this guy. And I'm like, cool, man. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this in the back and I'm going to draw it up for you so that you don't have the same eagle as somebody else. So when people would come in and be like, I don't want something off the wall. I'm like, dude, just show me something on the wall that you want, and I'll make it yours.
I mean, that was so like my we didn't have a ton of flash. Like we had some books and stuff at the shop that I was at, but we didn't have a ton of flash. So it was definitely like a lot of custom, where it's like you brought me a flower that you printed off on the internet, and now I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna try and draw something that looks like this flower, but like it's not gonna be the exact same because I'm interpreting it.
Exactly, you're doing your version.
Yeah,
of that.
and so like I definitely like did a ton of shit like that. Like I had to trace it. We didn't have liners at all like ready to go. So it was fucking make it yourself. You know?
So but that's the thing is like I think if you continue if you're drawing things, even if it's a loose tracing, you're gonna get your own line weight. You're gonna get your own flow to the wing or whatever you're doing.
That's my beef with the iPads. That's my biggest beef with the fucking iPads is that like it's a programmed brush, right? It's everything in it. Everything about the iPad is programmed to do the same thing every time. And I was like, well, you can adjust the pressure. And like, no, that's not what I mean. That's not what I fucking mean. I mean that when I make a mistake, it's there. Right. When I want it to be thick to thin on my terms, it's there. You know, like if the pencil is sharp versus when the pencil gets worn down, that shows up in the drawing. That's never going to be there in the iPad.
So I don't know if I necessarily entirely agree with that statement, because I think that there are so many different brushes now in the iPad. My biggest issue with the iPad is I think I'll be honest with you. And again, I've already said I've gone out many times and said that the iPad has made me a lazy prick.
Okay.
I'm not.
So we all heard it.
Oh no, you don't have to. It's been. Trust me, I've said this on several occasions. Anybody who knows me knows I'm fucking. But and again, I will admit the iPad has become a time saver. It's a great tool for the business.
Here's what the iPad does. The iPad makes it so that you have no excuse. You have no excuse to not have something to show your fucking client.
Oh, most
certainly.
That's
what the iPad does.
Most certainly.
Like, it's too easy now to have a color study, to have a some kind of like value study, a fucking, you know, the sketch, the liner, like all of that should be there when the client comes in, right? Like there's like you didn't not have time because you don't have to carry around 164 colored pencils anymore.
Oh god, yeah.
And they break every time
you just,
sharpeners.
It's like and they got to try to wedge the little thing out.
I used to have a pencil graveyard like across my studio room where I would like get so mad and chuck that thing.
You couldn't travel with those pencils because once they get rattled around, all the fucking lead bursts.
When we were on tour, we dropped a whole case.
Just pretty much destroyed.
Prismacolor pencils, like 100 and some pencils, fell out of the car onto the street, just like. And I was like, they're all broken.
Well, So this is a good segue to my next question then. Art. You still create quite a bit of art. You do some digital, yeah.
A little bit. I've played with it a little bit.
So how important is it to you? Like I remember you telling me a long time ago that you tell all your artists you have to produce. You can't just come here and tattoo. Yeah. Like you want a certain amount of prints, t-shirt designs, whatever.
I mean, we don't have like a quota or anything, but it's definitely pushing. Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of a push here at the shop. Like if you come in here and I think honestly, like if you come in here and you don't do it, you're gonna feel left out because everybody else is doing it. You know, like we have a shop and we've just always had a shop full of artists who came in with like a really great artistic skill set on some kind of either traditional medium or graphic design. You know, like whether it was digital or traditional, didn't matter, but they all came in with a penchant for doing artwork just to do artwork, just for fun, just for them, you know. And I, as somebody who like started making prints very early in my career, I was like, dude, I can help all you motherfuckers like make extra money on the side. So it was like, if you come and work for me, it's stupid to not just make some extra art because we print it for you. You hand us the artwork and you tell us what you want to do with it and we make it happen. And then they just make a percentage after the shop gets paid back for it.
So now how do you feel about what's your preferred medium that you like to work in off skin?
I really love acrylics and oil. Those are my top two.
So the majority of the stuff is acrylics and oils. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about like I said, how do you feel about the digital? Like, do you do?
So I've done a couple digital pieces. I did the Morgan a few years back, and then I did the poster for the Austin Invitational.
Oh, the one with the bats.
Yeah,
that was sweet.
Chick with the bats, and I had fun doing them, but I'm not gonna lie, like. There's something I miss about like just
having something physical.
Yes, and I think that especially with like the rise of like AI art and stuff, like the physical art will come. It's gonna do this weird circle thing where the physical art then becomes worth so much more to people.
So what are your thoughts? So the reason why I've not gone down the road, and I talked to Kelly about this. I've not gone down the road of the AI stuff. You know what I mean? I've not done that yet. And it's mainly because I'm not that tech savvy. And to be honest, I'm kind of lazy. The idea of fucking going through and prompting shit, I'd rather just try to find reference.
It's not like, to me, it's just not for artists. Like AI art is for people that can't make art and they're just like, I just want to feel like I'm part of the team.
How do you feel about those types of people? The ones that are actually calling themselves artists with just using nothing more than prompts.
I can't agree with that.
You don't?
No.
Do you have any friends that have been burned by AI yet? Like artist friends?
I have a couple friends that I talk to who do like Magic the Gathering cards. Like they're like traditional artists. They don't do tattoos, but I do know that
that's what I'm saying. It's usually.
I do know some tattooers. They're also on a short list of people who have had stuff that's actively been uploaded into these systems, and there's like a class action suit that their names are on. Okay. Suing some of these like AI generator like systems because they're actively taking their work and uploading it to train the AI.
So there's a show called That Tattoo Show out of the UK. Mm-hmm. I had done their podcast a while back, and if you get an opportunity. Anybody out there, if I can, I'll post the link to that particular episode. They just did it, but there's a bunch of different things that you can do now when you upload your artwork. It's not easy, but there are things you can do that will fuck with AI.
Oh,
and will fuck with the I don't know how it works, to be honest with you, but it will actually not allow it to see. To be used the way it's seen on, you'll see one thing, but the computer is going to recognize it as something else. So it just kind of fucks with it. So there are things you can do. I don't think it's easy. You know what
I think would be really fun is if we all just make art not digitally, and then we don't put it online, okay? And then we take it to like a convention and we just sell it.
So I don't
know. Call me crazy,
but so I love.
It's
I
like,
fucking
you know,
absolutely fucking love that idea.
You'll be the only person to ever see it.
The only problem with that is how many people in this world, forget about this fucking trade, but in this world are going to have such a hard time wrapping their heads around something that they can't. First of all, it's not only the idea that nobody else is really going to see it, it's the likes. Where did they get the fucking likes?
Like once you buy it, yeah, you can do whatever the fuck you want with it. Like it's yours then. I made my money off of it.
Yeah.
So like if I do a painting that the internet never sees and somebody buys it and they want to post up that they got a painting for me that, you know, like,
so I think I'd
be like, sick, man.
I love I love the fact that you think that way, but I think from the standpoint of like the idea of being able to make a name for yourself, get that next painting sold, whatever.
Sure.
The problem being is I think that individuals are just entirely too lazy to allow that to run their lives. Like they have to fucking feed into the algorithm. You know, they need to get their shit out there. I'm
just not one of those people then, I guess, because I have a lot of art that I've never posted.
Oh, that's fantastic. And to be honest with you, that's one of the reasons I always like visiting people, because when you go to their private studios and you walk around their studios and you see the stuff that never made it.
You want that, and the best thing, I love this so much, is when you meet an artist that has a sketchbook.
Yeah, Joey Ortega from Austin.
Joe. But have you seen Steve? Have you seen Steve's?
Which
Steve Moore?
So it was years and years and years ago. We sat in on a workshop that he had done, and he had some of his sketches there. I remember going through James Texas.
I got to touch
I
held the sketchbook. I flipped through the pages, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Like I was like the holy grail, dude. It was like the fucking grail.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that we, talking about. Like I was talking to Tony Ciervar about this, and he's like, he does do a lot of stuff digitally because it's just easier for him to produce and get it into print.
He is a production artist,
every now and again, he says he's got to sit down, he's got to have a pad of paper in front of him, and he's just got to fucking draw. He's got to have something physical on paper. And I keep saying that, it's like, dude, you got to break, because I never did. Like, it took me a long time to get into the iPad, and I only got into it because out of fear of falling behind of everything else that's going on in the trade, And it was one of those things. It's like, dude, you can't let this run your shit. And now it's just completely run my shit. Like, and I know, exactly. No, it's horrible. I feel terrible for it. I feel like I've cheated myself. Mm-hmm. I would say that I've cheated my clients because of the type of works I'm doing now. But it's also the fact that you do get worn down being an artist for as long as I've been doing it, and the fact that I'm now forced, where before clients and the business was forced to follow me. Mm-hmm. Where it's like, oh no, I want what he's doing. I want that. I've got to get that. Now I've gotten to the point where there's so many of you guys, you know what I mean, that I'm like, now I'm the guy that's just kind of like, okay, cool, bring it. I need to work. Like, just let's do it. You know what I mean? And it's come down to that.
So many of you guys.
Well, because I mean, you're one of those people now.
People.
It's one of you guys. You know what I mean?
I don't know, man. I mean, I think, isn't that why we own shops?
Not necessarily.
So
let me ask you a question.
Because you bring up people, and then you get to watch, and then like eventually I won't be able to tattoo like fucking every day of the week.
Well, and that's, to be honest,
and I'll just get to watch them do cool tats, and then I'll just do like a couple.
And you're right. That is part of the beauty of owning a shop, because it is a business that it's like having a field. You know what I mean? You bring in certain artists and you watch them grow, you watch them produce, you watch them, and yes, they will be the ones that you make your money.
But I think, let me say this with the caveat though, that like for me, owning a shop isn't like just having a bunch of artists that work for me.
Oh, of course not.
It's having a bunch of artists that work with me.
Yes.
That I get to help like build their careers up, like hopefully to where mine is. You know, like I want to see them like take off and do really cool shit, and then like, you know, the payoff is just that like I'll continue to have this space to grow artists.
Now, now having said that, with apprenticeships, you apprentice Kingsley. Mm-hmm. Was it 2 years?
I think it's almost 3 years.
It's
now.
almost 3 years.
Yeah.
So he's been 3 years. He's been with you since, which is nice to know, because a lot of, we live in a world now where it's like, okay, thanks for teaching me, fuck off.
Here's the thing though, man. I think that is a product of the environment, like, and one of the things that, like, I talk with my apprentices about this, but it's like, I don't want to take advantage of you, and I don't want you to feel like you're just here to work and make me money. Like, there has to be a give and take, you know, because at the end of it, like, there should be a level of respect between, you know, the teacher and the student. And then at the end, you know, like, they don't want to leave because they have it so good here. Why should they?
So that is a really important thing that, in all honesty, I think gets lost in certain aspects of this business. Mm-hmm. I think that's a shame because I am a firm believer that if you treat people
the way
properly,
you want to be treated,
and that's something. Yeah, that's exactly it. That is something I've said my entire life. I don't expect, like, people say it's respect. Like the guy who brought me in was like, you don't show me any respect, and
but
I'm like,
respect for what, dude?
so that's something I've often said. I was brought up where you have to give respect in order to get respect. You do not get respect just because you pay the fucking bills.
Yeah.
Because by me paying you, you're able to pay the bills.
So
there has to be a certain point where you can't take advantage. You can't take for granted what somebody you work with is bringing to the table. Mm-hmm. You have to look at that. And dude, and as a shop owner, that is one of those things. If you don't have that in the back of your mind, if you don't have in the back of your mind that the only reason you pay your bills is because of the 6 other people that you work with,
yeah.
And if they're not happy, they have every reason to leave your dopey ass, and you will lose this business. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So you can never take for granted the individuals you work with, no matter how good or bad or whatever. You need to make sure that you give them a proper place to work. You need to take care of them. Yep. And again, and I will admit, 30 some odd years in this business and owning Hope for 20, you know, it's hard to really kind of keep things in focus, especially when it comes to how crazy the times have become, you know what I mean? And running a business. For everybody out there who thinks that it's easy to run a shop, you're out of your fucking minds.
No,
all you motherfuckers opening up private studios, good luck to you in 2 years, because I honestly believe the next several years in this business is going to be fucking frightening. It really, it scares the shit out of me.
I don't think you're wrong. Yeah, I think, like, the shop I came up in, I was there for 8 years before I left to open my own shop. So I was well into my, you know, like, career, and knew who I was as an artist, knew what I was trying to do with my art, and, like, had a rhythm for how I made stuff. And then I was like, I think I'm ready to do this, you know, and then I still ended up opening it with a partner because I was afraid to do it on my own.
This happened with Erin, right?
Yeah. And so I was like, I think I do it by myself, you know. And I still, at this point, like, I don't run a shop by myself. I have a manager that I pay very well.
Yeah.
To run a lot of the back end. And then today, even, like I told you earlier, I was like, I was supposed to tattoo. I didn't because my manager, like, we're down a person to run the front desk, and we've been like on the search to hire. We've been doing interviews every day, and we're at this point where, like, if I didn't not tattoo today, like, it would have been the shittiest fucking day for her. You know, like, it was just, there was so many things piling up on her plate, and as a business owner, you have to, like, know when you gotta step in and, like, take care of that shit because you're the only person that can do it, you know? And so I didn't tattoo today to do that. And it's crazy to me because, like, you know, when I wasn't a business owner, all I did was tattoo. That's all I did. I didn't think about fucking numbers and business and, oh God, I got to call Microsoft 365 support system because they fucking locked me out of my Excel shit and now I can't see any of my books. That's cool. Love that.
I think the first time I came, was it the first time I came down here to get tattooed? No, I came down to do a guest spot. It wasn't when you tattooed my neck. Because I stayed in a hotel when he tattooed my neck.
Yeah.
I came down. I think I was just passing through.
Okay.
And no, I did tattoo one day, and I remember waking up at your place, going to brush my teeth, and I brushed my teeth, and I went to turn the shower on, and the fucking shower didn't come on, and I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. And I go downstairs, and I go turn the kitchen faucet on, and that didn't come on, and I'm like,
Teresa.
Tell me this broad did not pay her fucking bills. And I'm texting you. You're dead asleep. Like, you're asleep in the other room.
Probably. Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I don't fucking believe this. So I was like, I got dressed. I went to the shop. Mm-hmm. I got myself a cup of coffee, and then I think you might have called me at that point. And I'm like, yeah. Have you gotten up yet? And she's like, you're like, yeah. And I'm like, did you check the kitchen faucet yet? And you're like, no. You might wanna. And you were like, huh. I'm gonna look into this. And you didn't pay your fucking water bill.
Look, I have a manager to run this shop for a fucking reason, dude.
So
like, I am not like all artists. We have our strengths and our weaknesses. Most of those strengths are drawing.
So
and chaos and cool hair. Okay, I've got these things down.
So now.
But you want me to remember when I'm supposed to
the
pay
fucking water bill?
God,
and the best
Joe,
part is
come on.
The worst time for this to happen is when I'm at your place.
Yeah, of course.
Because I'm just like, oh yeah,
dude. That's just like a metaphor for my life. Like anytime something's gonna go wrong, it's when I have somebody there to watch it happen. I swear to God. Like I think I had a guest artist that really wanted to meet my crow. They were like, I love birds, I love crows, I want to meet your Eric. And I was like, sure, man, you can come on back to the house. I live 7 minutes down the road. And so I get to my house. What did the cast do? Immediately threw up on the floor in front of everybody.
Jesus.
Just like, blah! I was like, welcome to my house. I'm going to go.
Welcome to Sharpe.
Go get a spot pot, clean up vomit for the next 10 minutes, make yourself at home.
Oh Christ!
I mean,
what you said before, like when I
chaos.
opened Hope, it wasn't even just me opening Hope. Like so, Hope happened because we worked at a shop that the owner kind of hit the wall pretty hard, and I was like, I had just moved to Connecticut. Maybe it wasn't even a year, I think.
Oh wow!
And I was like, man, I ain't working for a shop like this. Fuck this. I gave the guy one warning, and he still fucking did it, so I bounced. Eric was fed up with being there. Julio, we knew each other for years, so we started looking at locations. And Hope happened out of necessity. Mm-hmm. So they opened the shop with me. We were partners when it happened. We were downtown for 6 years after getting fed up. But I hadn't stopped traveling, and I was going away monthly. Like I was literally on the road a week a month.
Same.
It wasn't because it wasn't about money.
No.
It was just about the experiences and traveling.
Well,
and all my friends are elsewhere.
When you start off my career was like I birthed it from travel, man. Like I was like out there with Kelly, and then when we stopped doing the cross country tours, we were doing overseas stuff, and we did a tour with Timmy, and we did tons of shit. We were definitely traveling like once a month, dude. Yeah. Like some convention.
It was just
somewhere,
to me personally, like the first trip I ever took was. I think it was 4 years in my career, and I went on I think it was 4 years. I got the opportunity because at that point I was doing conventions, and I wasn't allowed to go away a lot because I still work for the shop. If I went to a convention, I didn't even fly the Lotus banner. I would just put my own banner up because that's the way I thought it was done. Mm-hmm. But I still had to give 50%. Yeah. And it was just one of those things. You want to go away? Shop collects 50%, and they had nothing to do with the shows. Mm-hmm. So, it took a couple of years for me to be like, yeah, that's not happening anymore. You know what I mean? Like the only reason we're at the show is because I'm here, because I got the booth. You know.
I never had that issue.
Well, I think back then too. You got to keep in mind this is like 94, 95.
Yeah, the idea of travel was probably
and again, I look back on it and I go, yeah, I get it, man. Like I'm not in the shop. Shop's not making money. I get it, but. At that point, it was like I was a kid from Long Island. That to leave the island is a big fucking deal. Like if you know anybody from Long Island, you don't usually leave, and once you do, you get a fucking taste for it. And then I go and meet my girlfriend who became my wife years later. Like, dude, it was like she was in Tennessee. She was a tattooer in Tennessee. She owned a shop down there. I was going away monthly for that. You know what I mean? Yep. It was one of those things where it was like. And it just opens your fucking eyes. And I will admit, the first time I traveled, it was a 3-week trip down to Georgia, Tennessee, and North Carolina. And to me, that was just to see if I can get away, if I could leave Long Island for that amount of time, which is not easy. I got in my car, loaded it up, and just went. And I just never looked back after that. It was like, I would go back, I would be like, no, I'm going. And eventually I met Corey Kruger. He lived in New Hampshire, and I'm like, well, this guy's amazing. I need to work with him. So I'm going up to New Hampshire to work with him. That took a shit. Everything was about learning. Everything was about getting over the anxiety or whatever. I still haven't gotten over it. I still hate traveling. I still flip the fuck out. I get the worst fucking agita every time I have to fucking get on a fucking plane coming down here to meet my friends in Kentucky, I'm like, okay, I gotta get up early, go to bed early, and I wake up like every fucking hour, and finally
you know where it's not like that?
Where?
In Europe. Because you just get on a train.
No, I'd still be freaked out.
The train?
No, it's just the idea of traveling. It's the idea of having to make sure that that's why I drive everywhere.
Oh, man,
the idea of being able to get up whenever I want, get in my car, and fucking go whenever I want to leave. The biggest variable is whether or not you have car trouble. That's the only thing that freaks me out. And I've been, I've been very fortunate that that's not happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that to me that's what it was about. So when we had Hope, the first 6 years, like, dude, it was a shit show, man. It was hard to run that shop and travel and come back and tattoo 6 days a week. And I remember when we moved to the new place, we were there for a year, and it got to a point where I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like, every time I would go to the fucking the accountant at the end of the year and have to pay taxes, how I did not run that place into the fucking ground and get just fucked by the IRS. And I didn't want to say that because who knows what's going to happen in the next year. Tax situations have changed, everything. Yeah. But I remember my friend Nicole. You met Nicole. She came up, and I'd known her for quite a few years. I'd been tattooing her at that point. She was just leaving Kid Robot, and she came up for our grand reopening at the new location, and it was super cool. She hung out. We had a great art show. Jimmy Litwall came out. It was amazing. Russ was, and so many people were there, And at the end of it, I was like in a daze. I had also been drinking. And she's just like, hey, I'm going to... Oh, and she also dropped off the Bride of Frankenstein toy that I did with Kid Robot.
Yeah.
She brought me the prototype.
Cool, yeah.
So, dude, it was a day. And she's getting ready to leave. And she goes, I was like, hey, man, Nicole, best of luck with everything. She goes, oh, we're going to be talking again. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I had mentioned to her about wanting to hire a manager. The next day, she gives me this long-ass, proposition to come work for me. And I hired her, on the spot. And it changed everything with the way the shop runs. Because I don't have to do it now. And the idea of being able to still travel, the idea of still... and I have Tiff. Tiff's been with us. She just made 10 years. I can't believe she's been with us for 10 fucking years. Yeah. But without her, nothing gets done. I wouldn't be able to travel. I'd run the place in the fucking ground. I just can't do it. You do not have the mental capacity to run that shop the way it needs to be run. It's just gotten entirely too large, and things have changed so much.
That's my cautionary tale to many artists that are trying to open shops or even just a private studio. Is you really got to think about how much time do you spend drawing and tattooing right now, and just cut that in half.
Yeah.
Because you can't.
You have your water gets shut off.
Only guy, or your water gets shut off. Well, you have a guy you really look up to guessing in your fucking house. I don't know. Fuck it, man.
But yeah, I think
what I'm trying to say is my life is absolute chaos. If you're not with it, then don't come hang out. Who knows?
So the majority of the guests that you have coming through the doors, they're coming through because of you. They're not.
Honestly, not necessarily all the time.
No.
We have a fair amount of our artists. Faith is friends with a lot of people. They come because they want to guest with her. We've got Kingsley has quite an extensive group of friends who kind of all got into tattooing around the time that he did, and he is very good at networking and connecting with people. And so we've had guests that come just because of him, because they know him and the shop looks cool, and they feel welcome here, and so we get a lot of guests from all kinds of.
So what's funny? So going back to that, the relationships you make, I call it cliques. Now, we had the same thing. You had groups back in the day.
I was with the art kids, man.
Same
the
here.
tranny dudes didn't like me.
Same here, but so the funny thing is, I've managed to, the fact that I know you, you've been tattooing half as long as I have. You know what I mean? But like I said, I remember, I think I may have said this to Kelly, that one trip to Detroit where I didn't know anybody, and I knew you were upstairs. I'm like, yeah, get down here right now, because I don't know anybody in the fucking bar. But the crazy thing was,
I'm
nobody.
Drawing, but I can stop right now.
Well, but the funny thing is I know all the old guys, I know all the middle guys, I know the guys who came after them, and then you got my group, and then you've got the newer group, and I've managed to a lot of people. I know a lot of different people from a lot of different groups. That particular night, nobody came up and talked to me. And it wasn't until you and Kelly came downstairs that it all of a sudden turned into like, and all these people were just like, yeah, man, I've always been a big fan of yours, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, where the fuck were you 2 fucking hours ago? Yeah, exactly. And you're not going to talk to me until these two fucking come down? Like, that's unfucking fair. Like, well, what the fuck?
Look, man, sometimes your hair is really big and
it was back
it's
then,
very intimidating. And people, dude, I have people all the time that tell me I'm extremely intimidating to talk to.
So, I mean, I get that. And that's one of the other problems I have with the younger generation of tattooers is like, grow a pair. Like, stop.
Well, to be fair, I will say that, like, I think that is, like, that is what you have to do, right? Like, like, if you want to get to know somebody, you want to get connected with an artist, or you want to watch them tattoo, or you want to fucking hang out at their shop, like, you have to reach out and talk to them, you know? Like, and I think a lot of the people that are nervous and worried and hold back, they know that. Like, they know that they're not going to get there if they don't do it, but the fear is just going to hold them back. And, and some of them make peace with that. They're like, I'm just never going to be that person.
No, and you know what? And you're right. Not everybody should be that person. You know what I mean? It's the ones who make that break, who literally are the. I mean, it's the ones who fly closest to the fucking.
My favorite guest artists are the ones that just get here and they're unhinged as fuck and they're ready to party and they're like, do you want to go out and like. And I'm like, yeah, you want to, yeah.
So let me ask you a question.
You fucking ready to party? Because I don't think you know how late I can stay up. Joe knows how late I can stay up.
Oh, dude. Like, so I want to say it was actually that same fucking trip. Dude, so I roll into town. This is a great fucking story. So I roll into fucking town at like, it was kind of early-ish. It was like 6 o'clock. And I know I'm crashing at her place. Mm-hmm. I meet up with everybody at the shop. And I'm like, hey, where's Teresa? And they're like, oh, she didn't have an appointment today. She's riding. I'm like, okay. I was like, I guess she's going to, she has a horse.
His name's Franklin.
So I'm like, oh, cool. I'm like, all right. But to me, the traveling is about the camaraderie. It's about going out to dinner. It's about going and having drinks. It's about sitting around and shooting the shit, whatever, and telling stupid stories. Mm-hmm. So
love it.
I go to dinner with your crew, and we go across the street. We're all hanging out. And then you're like, yeah, I ain't going to be able to make it. Why don't you just come to the house? Here's your address. I'm like, cool, whatever. Dick. So I fucking hang out with everybody there. I've had a bunch of drinks, whatever, and I go to your place, and I show up, and you're just like.
Can I just say, to be fair, I have a kid. He's like, she's just a dick. Didn't want to come hang out. I had a kid who was like fucking.
You out riding a horse like a little fucking princess.
Yeah, well, he was at school at that time.
He wasn't that young.
Yeah.
Whatever.
He was whatever. Like, I don't know the age of my own kid. Probably like 12 years old.
I show up. It's probably like 9:30 or whatever, and you're like, "Hey, you want some wine?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." I think we went through 3 bottles of wine, and then it's like 4 o'clock in the fucking morning. She goes, "You want some champagne?" And I'm like, "Are you out of your fucking mind?" And she cracks a bottle of champagne. We didn't go to bed till 5 o'clock in the morning. Now, keep in mind. I wake up the next morning. Thank Christ I got to at least fucking brush my teeth before I realized the water was off. Because if I had to go to the shop with fucking 3 bottles of wine and a bottle of champagne to the point where I remember going to bed that night and being like, damn, this bro can party. You know what I mean? But the funny thing about that was an incredible night. Because in all honesty, I would have never thought you'd be the person I guess you are or turned out to be or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that I don't know how many people. I think like me, you ride you wear a couple of different hats.
Sure,
where you can hang with a bunch of different crowds. It doesn't have to be the artsy fartsy crowd. It doesn't have to be the heads, the bad guys. It doesn't have to be. You can wear a bunch of different hats, and it's just about who you are. And in all honesty, who that person is, who that other person is. Mm-hmm, and you make time for those people. I think that's something that some of the younger generation, a lot of the older generation, nobody's willing to look beyond that. Like if they think you don't belong, and that's one of my issues with a lot of what's going on today is these cliques think, what the fuck's he doing here? Hence the anime show. Mm-hmm. Like me walking around being like, it's like, dude, it's not like I'm coming in here like a troll and I'm gonna start bashing people. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you
but
people?
What if
like,
you did though?
Oh, that'd be amazing. Oh, not for nothing, and that would have been the place to fucking do it. Holy shit, that would have been incredible.
Joe Smash.
It's like, who let the monster out of its cage?
Just like fucking Godzilla just fucking coming through.
That would be incredible.
The hair up there.
But that's the thing. It's like, if you can get by, and that's something I would tell anybody.
I killed Tim.
I know, right? Our director is choking.
Stick to it.
Just like kicking down banners. Just like flipping
could
tables.
you imagine flipping tables? Dude, I do remember
man.
walking in there and being like,
God.
I fully expected it to smell like cupcakes. Like, I swear to God.
No,
Everything was
you've
teal
obviously never
and
been to
pink.
an anime con because they smell bad. It is.
Well, no,
it
of
is
course. But when
bad.
you look at it from a distance, you just assume it's going to be like cupcakes.
Well, there's an overwhelming amount of pink and
I think what saved it was in such a huge venue. But like again, like I said, I think it was funny just being. And again, I think that's a big thing. Never take a book. No, never judge a book by its cover because, and especially in this business, man, like. You can.
I mean, going back to like when I first met Kelly Station and not Kelly.
Right.
And I thought this bitch was just gonna be the girliest, like boringest fucking.
Then she comes in goth as fuck.
Goth as fuck. No, I didn't even meet her at the shop, dude. Like we met up later that night at a gay karaoke bar, like just the lesbians as far as the eye could see.
Northampton, yeah.
Yeah, Northampton, and just like. She's there, goth the fuck out. The only one there, goth the fuck out, because the rest of us are wearing like capri shorts and backwards hats and fucking full lesbian garb. Yeah, like some some Skechers or maybe like Heelys. I think I had Heelys at the time. This is fucking a hat, like a sock hat with a brim. And some little wristbands from Hot Topic. Just like full on like emo lesbian girl. But like Kelly's there, just like giant hair and the white makeup, the goth makeup, and the super heavy shadows, and just like went up and sang the saddest, slowest song, and it was the first night she'd ever drank. And she drank nothing but White Russians.
Oh my God.
Because it was the only drink she knew from having watched The Big Lebowski, because movies rule her life. And so she was like, I only know this drink, so I'll order that because it sounds like a drink. And then
I didn't even want to know what that felt like the next morning.
Oh, not good, dude, because I had to drive her car. I met her there.
And you had to drive her
And
out
I
that night.
met her like a drink in, first time drinking, no constitution for alcohol at the time, and just like, and then proceeded to drink more of them, and I'm like, this girl is crazy, and like sang a song, and I was like, no, not confident enough for that. This was Teresa without a mohawk, okay, so like didn't have that yet, and then like at the end of the night, she can't drive, and so the other girl that I was hanging out with was like, yeah, we're gonna need you to drive her car back, and I'm gonna take her in this car, and I'm like, what? You want me to drive a stranger's car back to a location that I don't know about? And they're like, yep. Okay.
Welcome to the club.
Drove her car back. And then, like she had a terrible night, I'm pretty sure. Had alcohol poisoning or something. And then like, and then to my surprise, the girl that I was there to hang out with the next day is like, so I'm going on vacation with my boyfriend. You can stay in my apartment and feed my cat, or you can stay with Kelly. Those are your options. And I was like, Kelly, the girl that got super drunk at the bar last night, and I drove her car back, and she's like super goth, but then like the station's like pink and purple, and they were like, yeah, that's the one. And I was like, tough choice. Be alone in an apartment with a cat that's like 18 years old.
Oh my God, be responsible for the death of the cat.
Be responsible for the death of the cat. Or go stay with a girl you just met, but you didn't really meet her because you met the drunk version, and see what that's like. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to roll the dice on the girl. And so I ended up at Kelly's apartment with all my shit. And Kelly didn't, this was like, she got thrown into this too. Like, it wasn't like...
She woke up the next morning like, who the fuck are you?
What's your name again? And I get there, and I'm like, doing that thing where you like walk around somebody's house and you look at their shit and you're like trying to figure out like who they are as a person, and she had this like whole stack of DVDs on a shelf, and like right center middle was like the craft and the crow.
The crow.
And I was like, oh, you like the craft and the crow? And she was like, oh, I love the crow. And I was like, you love the crow? And I was like, dude, I love the crow. She's like, no, I love the crow. And I was like, are we gonna watch it right now? And she was like, yeah. And we threw that shit on, and we both knew all the lines in the fucking movie, like just by heart. Went through the whole fucking movie, and I was like, we're best friends now.
That's amazing.
And then like weeks later, she's like, you want to go on tour? And I was like, I've spent 2 days with you. Why not? Let's go on.
Dude,
let's get in a car for 2 months and travel around the country.
And not for nothing, that is exactly what this business kind of used to be like.
Best time of my life.
It's there a little bit.
You can still do it. You can still do it. Like,
so yes. So
the whole setup for how we did that is extremely possible right now.
we still we still do it. I just came down to
all the young tattooers out there.
Yes. But don't look at it, I think,
if you have a friend that you could possibly see having an amazing time stuck in a car with
forget
them.
about amazing time. Life.
Across the country. Yeah, life altering. You may come out as enemies, or you may come out as the best of friends, or maybe you'll fall in love. I don't know. But, like, go on tour with them and just see what happens. Just fucking do it. Just fucking do it. Like, I don't know. This is the best time of my life. So,
on that note, because I think that's actually a great place to end. You know what I mean? Is there anything else you would like to add to this that I haven't? I mean, not that I touched on. I mean, I think we touched on a bunch of the stuff that I wanted to talk about. But realistically, is there anything else that you feel?
Oh man, I don't know. Like, it's profound shit. I gotta say something profound.
No, you don't have to say anything profound. You can just be like, "Fuck off and die." I don't really give a shit. But no. I don't think. No, I mean, it's like so. I've said every single time, but this is about me learning. This is about me getting closer to my friends. This is about me wanting to expand my horizons.
Do you feel closer to me now, Joe?
Not even a little bit.
Oh.
The same. I mean, dude, not for nothing. Like, I woke up in your house and, there was no water. I mean, you're never gonna get beyond that. You know what I mean? Like, you left me hanging.
You want to know something crazy? I'm gonna tell you this just because it's funny, and you're gonna die when I tell you this shit. I got a phone call this morning from the electric company, and
no fucking way.
I'm not even kidding. They were like, if you don't send us a payment of $56
$56
before the 25th, we're gonna shut up.
Where was that phone call from the water company?
I don't know. It's so fucking funny.
Oh my God.
You're like, your water guy. I was literally calling them this morning like, you motherfuckers.
Oh Jesus.
Don't worry though, I paid the full amount.
Well, it doesn't matter. I don't really give a shit. You can turn your electric off. I'm going back to a hotel. I got an Airbnb, and I can only hope they pay their bills.
My manager saw. I opened my phone and it was on the voicemail. You know how it does the text.
Oh my God!
And she started reading it, and she was like, "What the fuck is it?" She thought it was for the shop, and I was like, "No, don't look
that's next month. The shop will get turned off next month.
Don't look at that." Oh no, it would never. She is on that shit. That's why I have a manager, dude. I need a life manager is what I need.
Exactly. You truly do.
I've never been married, and I think that's the problem.
Personal responsibilities mean nothing. Oh, for fuck's sake. All right,
yeah.
I'm going to go. That is definitely the story to go back.
So I guess I'm looking for a life manager.
So if
anybody out there
a life manager
thinks they might be able to fill that role, it does not pay well, and it is utter chaos. I'm going to tell you right now. You might have to go home and make crow food. I don't know if you know how to do that.
Might have to find some roadkill. We don't we want to make the roadkill look like it died in the house. So you got to be real creative about how you lay the thing out so the crow feels comfortable eating it.
He's not going to like you either. He's not nice to people he doesn't know. Oh man,
for fuck's sake.
And you know, like there's a lot of shit in my life, man. Like there's a kid that rolls in and out of it all the time, and you know.
Holy shit, that's amazing.
You know, my kid turns 20 this June.
Yeah, you were saying he moved and stuff, right?
Yeah, he's got his own place.
Good for him. Is he still in Virginia?
Oh, he's 7 minutes down the road from my
nice.
house.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't worry, he didn't go far. But he pays his bills better than I do.
You should get him to pay your bills.
I raised him right, man. I raised him right. He's doing great.
Oh, God. Yeah, it wasn't definitely by example.
No, it's by example. It's exactly by example. I'm like, just
don't follow this example.
This, you know, and you'll be fine.
Oh, my Christ.
I mean, that's how my mom raised me. It was fine.
All right, well, on that note, hopefully she has power tomorrow and she wakes up in time for her appointment and her alarm clock doesn't get shut off.
The phone's that's a separate power. It's fine. It'll be fine.
Well, this has been another episode of Not For Nothing with Teresa Sharpe. I'll leave her information in the bottom. And
send your resumes to info@unkindnessart.com.
Oh, by the way, that's for real. So if this comes out, I'll try to get this out soon.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
This way, maybe it'll get out before you're actually able to hire somebody. Yeah. Like and subscribe. It's stuff. It's stuff. You're a horrible director. Let me see.